Howdy YouTube, and welcome to this episode of the Gunman. So today we're going to be doing the polishing stage on this Aston Martin DBS. I've actually done two other videos on this same car. One was the prep and masking stages and the other one was the spray painting stages. So you're welcome to go and check those ones out if you haven't already seen them. Otherwise, just watch this video. So on this job here, if you didn't see the other two videos, I painted both of the fenders and the front bumper cover. That's why you could see I gave you guys a look up close at the fender versus the door, and my finish is actually quite a fair way off what they've got on the door. So that's the job here today, is to get the fenders and the bumper looking the same as the rest of the car. Now I did actually do another video previously to this one where I showed you guys my polishing cart, and one thing I actually forgot to show you guys in that is the tungsten denibbing block, which is what you see me using here. So what we do with that is we shave down the nibs. So the nibs or bits of dirt, if you're unaware with that term, the little bits of dirt in the paint will be raised sections, and then what the denibbing tool, the tungsten denibbing tool, will do is shave them down so that it's a similar profile with the rest of the paintwork, and then you'll go over the top of that and sand that down with say 1500 or 2000 grit, and then that will actually make it nice and even with the rest of the paintwork, and once you polish it up you will not be able to see that little imperfection anymore. So that's the basic idea behind it, and as I say, I did actually forget to show you guys that in the previous video. Now there's a few different ways of doing a job like this. Now, I don't know if you guys noticed at the very start, but the doors and the rest of the car on this is not actually 100% flat. So you can see some very minor puddling in it. And by puddling, I mean you can sort of see these, it's like, sort of like an ocean. You can see like those little waves and ripples just in the clear coat finish. Now, if I did actually want to get rid of that completely, there's probably a couple of things that I would have done. I would have put an extra coat of clear coat on. I probably wouldn't have even used this clear coat, because this clear coat, it's quite a different clear and it doesn't really like to be loaded up. It's just the way that it dries. Pretty much 2 coats is the limit with this clear coat. It's an unconventional clear in the way that it dries. It sort of doesn't really dry very well without heat. So yeah, as I was saying, if you really wanted it 100% dead flat, you'd probably want to put 3 coats as a minimum on it. And then block that clear back flat with a hard block, or at the very least a firm block, and then like say 1000 grit, or you could go even coarser depending on how flat you want it and how big the panels are, and then you go down through the grades from there. But as I say, like this Aston Martin here, it looks like the rest of the paint had just been sanded back flat with an orbital sander, which is why I decided to do exactly that when I was sanding this job back. So that's what I did. I just started off with 1500 grit, just dry. That's the 3M purple finishing film discs. Those things are actually totally awesome. Like, they last for quite a while. I mean, you're still going to use a few up on a job like this, because you do need to sand it back fairly flat. But as I say, not 100% dead flat is not exactly what I'm looking for on this job. Yeah, I'm pretty much at the point with sandpapers and consumables and stuff like that where I've kind of had enough of using the inferior cheap products, because at the end of the day, like, I haven't sat down and done 100% cost analysis on everything, obviously, but I've just found that the amount of extra sandpapers and compound and all that kind of stuff that you use with the cheaper stuff, it doesn't actually end up working out cheaper in the long run anyway. So I've just found you're just better off getting the top quality stuff, or maybe like one step down from the top of the line, you know what I mean? There are certain things that you can get like the next step down from, but generally these days with consumables and materials and stuff like that, I'm sort of like middle to high end price range. So with the compounds, with the sandpapers and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm no elitist. I hate that kind of an attitude, and there are some spray painters out there who just think they are so much better than you because they use a certain spray gun or a certain set of tools, or they do things a certain way. And that's not me. That's never going to be me. Like, I might be doing this high-end work on these high-end cars, but I'm never going to go and get such a big head that I go around thinking that I'm better than everybody else, because I can guarantee you that every single one of you watching this could teach me something. I've got an open enough mind to realize that I can learn something off everybody else. And look, I would imagine that most people that watch my videos have an open mind as well. You're the kind of people that will come here with an open enough mind to say, hey, you know what? I never thought of it doing it that way, but that Gunman guy, he might have a point here or there. Of course, we're not going to agree on everything. There's going to be certain things that you do that I'm not going to do, even after you teaching me that. I might give it a shot and say, you know what? I don't like doing it that way. I'm going to do it my way. But at the end of the day, results are all that really matters, and as long as you're producing results that your boss and the customers, more importantly, are happy with, and that's what I'm doing, you know. I don't put myself above you for 1 minute. It's funny how it all worked out. So it started off about 8 or 9 months ago when my uncle sent me a couple of messages. I've got a German uncle, and he's been importing some stuff called Sonax, which is that polish that you saw, the compound that you saw me using on this car, medium to heavy cut compound, right? So he got in contact with me about that, and then it just sort of snowballed, and I got right into the detailing and polishing side of things. And without that, I don't think I would have lasted at this workshop here. So I pride myself on the polishing, and I've gone and gotten pretty damn good at my polishing these days. I went and got myself all the best tools. I ended up going and getting all my battery powered stuff, which you saw me using in this video. So at the very start, you probably noticed that I was using my Milwaukee cordless rotary polisher. I was then using a little bit of the mini polisher. Those tools get a hell of a lot of use at this workshop, and I do love the convenience of those tools. Also, you just saw me just using the cordless flex orbital polisher too, so that's another great little tool to have. So yeah, just a quick rehash of what we've done in this video. We've basically used the orbital sander with the 1500 grit to start off with. We then went 3000. We then went with the marine grade compound, which is an ultra coarse compound. That was with the green pad. I then went with the Sonax, which is the ultimate, Sonax ultimate. So that's like a finer compound. And then I went up to the next one, which was Shoal S30, which is again was just a little bit finer, but then I stepped up to the finer pad, so that was the black pad. And then to finish it off, I went with the Flex with the ultra fine Roops pad on it. Actually, that's the one that I've found to be one of the best, but again, like, it can be tricky to find the right combination to get that final finish. So yeah, look, I've found, to be honest, the 3M ultra fine to be the most solid and probably most easily accessible one. So you might not be able to get your hands on that Shoal stuff that I use, because I think it's a relatively rare one. But look, I've found if you want to just use one system, 3M is probably the most comprehensive and best I could recommend anyway. And that's basically the idea of what you're doing when you're doing cutting and polishing, is just going up through the layers of fineness. You know, you start off coarse and then you go finer and finer each step. Now look, one thing that I learned recently is to replace my cutting pad more often. So what ended up happening, it was like the job after this, I was I had it all cut up with 3000 grit. I had the buff pad, which looked okay. It was starting to break up a little bit, but then when I swapped it out for a new one, like, the cutting power just increased 10 times. So yeah, you can have all these fancy compounds, you can have the coarse compounds, but if that pad that you're using is starting to get a little bit worn, then you're really going to lose a lot of that cutting power. So that's my latest little tip from Gunny. Sometimes if you're struggling to get those D-nib marks out, maybe just go and upgrade or change out that cutting pad. I'd like to say a big thanks to everyone for watching, and if you'd like to support the channel further, you're more than welcome to go over and check out some of the merchandise we've got. My personal favorite is those spray suits. So they're a good quality Colad branded spray suit with the Gunman logo on it. There's also hats, drink coolers, hoodies and t-shirts, so be sure to go over and check out the link in the description if you are interested.